Good morning, students. Today we are going to start with the transportation in plants with the phloem tissue. A bit of revision with that of the xylem tissue, how the transportation is carried out in plants. So, the transportation of the water and minerals is carried out by the xylem tissue, isn't it? This is what we had learned yesterday. The conduction of water and minerals will be carried out by the xylem tissue. Xylem, water and minerals. How the conduction is taking place? With the help of the components of the xylem. What are those components? The components which are called to be as xylem vessels, the tracheids, xylem parenchyma, and the xylem fibers. So among these, it is only the xylem parenchyma which is consisting of the living cells into it, whereas they are the dead cells. Wherein in these four components of the xylem, it is the xylem vessels and the tracheids that help in the longitudinal conduction of water. So, xylem vessels and the tracheids, they help in the longitudinal conduction of water. Parenchyma, cells of the xylem that helps in the storage, and fibers, they are providing the mechanical strength to the plant body. Now, the water from the soil enters into the root hairs, isn't it? By the process of diffusion and the osmosis, it enters into the xylem of the roots. The water enters into the xylem of the roots. From the xylem of the roots, with the help of tracheids and vessels, water enters into the xylem of the stem. And from here, it moves up into the xylem of the vein into the leaves with the help of the tracheids and the vessels. Further, when water reaches into the leaves, 1 to 2% of the water is utilized for what? For the photosynthesis process. Most of the water is transpired. So loss of water also takes place. Excess water, when it is present, it undergoes the process of transpiration. What happens? The leaf, say this area, the water from this region has been vaporized, the transpiration has been carried out, this area becomes vacant. Now, these cells present into the leaves, they take up the water from the beside cell. So, continuous channelize of the water is seen in the upward direction, and this is because of the suction pressure, which is called to be as the transpiration pull, which is called as transpiration pull. When this transpiration pull is seen, the upward movement of the water from the roots to the aerial parts of the plant body is carried out, and the overall process is called as ascent of sap. What is ascent of sap? The upward movement of the water and minerals from the roots to the aerial parts of the plant body is called as ascent of sap. this is how the conduction of water is carried out by the xylem tissue. This conduction of water is always in a unidirectional flow. It's a unidirectional flow. Now we shall take up the next part of the transportation in plants, that is for the food, how the conduction of the food is taking place. So, conduction of food. So, conduction of food, how is it taking place? With the help of what? With the help of the phloem tissue, isn't it? So, with the help of the phloem tissue, the conduction of food is seen into the plants. Now, this phloem tissue, it is consisting of the components which are called to be as the seed tube cells, the companion cells, the phloem parenchyma, and the last one, that is phloem fibers. Now, what are the functions that are performed by these components of the phloem tissue? The seed tube cells, these are the one which are consisting of the seed plate into it. The longitudinal cells, those are consisting of the seed plate. Seed-like structures are present into the cells of the phloem, which are present into the seed tube cells. Now, they help in transportation of the food. These seed tube cells, they are lacking the nucleus. These tube cells, seed tube cells, they are not consisting of the nucleus into them. So some of the process may be interrupted in between. To fulfill that, these companion cells, which are also called to be as the sister cells, these help in conduction of the food. These are consisting of the nucleus into it. So overall, the process of the conduction will be carried out with the help of the seed tube cells and the companion cells. Now, the phloem parenchyma helps in the storage. The most important function performed by the phloem parenchyma is that they help in the storage of the food material. Further, the last component of the phloem, that is phloem fibers. What do they do? The fibers, wherever we come across, they are providing the mechanical strength. They are providing the mechanical strength. Okay, so these are the components of the phloem tissue. These components, they help in the conduction of the food material. Now, whatever the food is formed, where is it stored? Whatever the food is formed, where is it stored? It is stored into the leaves, isn't it? So, from the leaves, the food has to be transported to each and every cell into the plant body. This conduction is carried out by the osmosis process. Now, the leaves, they are consisting of what? They are consisting of the food into it. Now, when the food is present into the cells, the water content enters into it and a pressure is created. This process, by the process of osmosis, the movement of the soluble food material from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is seen. Right? So, here what happens? The conduction of the food is taking place wherein they are utilizing the ATP molecule. The energy is required for the transportation of the food material. So by taking the use of the ATP molecules and by the process of osmosis, the movement of the soluble food material from the leaves to the different parts of the plant body is carried out. And this process we call it to be as the translocation. This process is a undergoing bidirectional flow. It is a bidirectional flow. Okay, so what is translocation? Translocation, it is the movement of the soluble food material from the leaves to the different parts of the plant body is called as translocation, which is a bidirectional flow. Sometimes the difference between the ascent of sap and the translocation can be asked, wherein should be mentioned the ascent of sap is nothing but the movement of the water from the roots to the aerial parts of the plant body. Water and minerals, they are moved from the roots to the aerial parts of the plant body. Whereas the translocation, it is the movement of the soluble food material from the leaves to the different parts of the plant body. Ascent of sap, this is carried out by which tissue? It is carried out by the xylem tissue. And translocation, how is it carried out? It is carried out by the phloem tissue. And here, the ascent of sap, it is a unidirectional flow. Ascent of sap is a unidirectional flow, whereas translocation is a bidirectional. Why? Because it is the movement of the food material to the aerial parts as well as to the roots is taking place. So the movement is in this manner, so it is a bidirectional flow. This is how the conduction of food and water will be taking place into the plants. The next we come across the next topic, that is transportation in animals. Transportation in animals. So animals, they are the multicellular organisms, the complex body structure wherein they are consisting of the perfect systems into it. So the movement of the materials will be carried out through the transport system into the organism. The transportation to be carried out, why is it important? First, most important, why transportation is required. See, whatever the food has been absorbed, that is present, the nutrients are present into the cell. Okay, this nutrient has to be supplied to each and every cell into the body, and for that supply we need transportation. The oxygen is present into the lungs. From the lungs it has to be taken up to each and every cell. For that also we need the transportation. And the hormones are secreted by the endocrine glands, and these hormones, they need to be taken up to their target organs, and for that also we need the transportation. Even urea which is present, that has to be removed from the body of an organism. To take that also the transportation is required. So for all the activities to be carried out, transportation is required into an organism. So perfect transport system is required, and that we call it to be as a circulatory system. The transportation by the circulatory system, that is consisting of types into the different organisms, different circulatory systems we come across. That is the open type of circulatory system, and the closed type of circulatory system. right? Circulatory system into different organisms are carried out by different systems that we call it to be as open type of circulatory system and the closed type of circulatory system. Open type of circulatory system, here the organism is consisting of the body cavities. Okay, through which the supply of the nutrients, the supply of the blood is taken up to each and every cell. But in case of the closed type of circulatory system, it is consisting of the blood vessels. It's consisting of the blood vessels through which the supply of the nutrients, supply of the oxygen, whatever the material has to be taken up to the cells will be carried out within these blood vessels, through the blood vessels. Now, in open type of circulatory system, if we take the example of the arthropoda, they are having the open type of circulatory system. If we see in case of the closed type, most of the animals, they are consisting of the closed type of circulatory system. Now, this circulatory system, closed, we are taking up the closed type of circulatory system only. In this, what should be present? Closed type of circulatory system, what it should be consisting of? It should be consisting of the heart, should be consisting of the blood vessels, should be consisting of the circulatory medium, should be consisting of the circulatory medium. So, in a closed type of circulatory system, the organism should be consisting of the heart, the blood vessels, and the circulatory medium. Heart, the muscular organ that helps to pump the blood, isn't it? It is a muscular organ which helps to pump the blood. Blood vessels, they are consisting of what? They are consisting of arteries, consisting of veins, and consisting of the capillaries. Right. The blood vessels, they are consisting of the arteries, they are consisting of the veins and the capillaries. And the circulatory medium, it is the blood and the lymph. Okay. So, in a closed type of circulatory system, all these should be present. Let us see all these in details. The heart into the different organisms is consisting of different chambers, right? The heart is consisting of different chambers into the different organisms. If we see heart in case of fishes, the unique characteristic feature is that it is consisting of two-chambered heart. Heart in case of the fishes is a two-chambered one, wherein it is consisting of one auricle and one ventricle. Right. Heart is two-chambered, consisting of one auricle and one ventricle. What are the functions of these auricles and ventricles? Auricles always they receive the blood. Receiving chamber, it is the receiving chamber, and ventricles, these are the pumping chamber. Auricles, they are the receiving chambers, and the ventricles, they are the pumping chamber. So, in case of fishes, one auricle and one ventricle. Then how the overall process of the circulation is carried out into them. See here, the fishes, they are taking up the dissolved oxygen, isn't it? Oxygen is in the dissolved form. So oxygen from the water enters into the gills. Gills are the one these gills are the respiratory organs in the fishes. From the gills, it is taken up to the body cells. Oxygen enters into the gills. From the gills, the oxygen, that is oxygenated blood, it enters into the body cells. All the cellular activities have been carried out. Now, the deoxygenated blood enters into the auricle. Enters into the auricle. So here it is the deoxygenated blood moving where? Into the auricle. From the auricle, it moves into the ventricle, and from the ventricle, the deoxygenated blood is taken back to the gills for the exchange of gases. See here, the dissolved oxygen from the water, the gills, they are absorbing that oxygen, and from the gills, the oxygen enters into the blood is rich in oxygen. Now it is called to be as oxygenated blood. This oxygenated blood enters into the body cells. The cells are awaiting for the oxygen so that the cellular activities are being carried out, and the waste in the form of carbon dioxide is released back into the blood. Now, the blood is rich in carbon dioxide, which is called to be as deoxygenated blood. So, this deoxygenated blood from the body cells is taken up to the auricle. From the auricle, it is taken up to the ventricle. From the ventricle, the deoxygenated blood moves back to the gills for the exchange of gases. So, in this complete process of circulation, the heart is receiving the blood for only one time. So, it is called as single circulation. So, it is called as single circulation. Heart in fishes is two-chambered, consisting of one auricle and one ventricle. Auricles are the receiving chamber, ventricles are the pumping chamber. Dissolved oxygen from the water enters into the gills. The gills take up the oxygen, and the blood is now called as oxygenated blood, which moves up into the body cells. Cellular activities are being carried out. The carbon dioxide is released into the blood. Deoxygenated blood it is called now, which moves up into the auricle from the body cells. From the auricle flows into the ventricle. The deoxygenated blood is taken to the gills for the exchange of gases. So, in this one complete circulation of the blood, the heart is receiving the blood only for one time. So, it is a single circulation, which is seen only in cases of the fishes, into the fishes. The next we come across what in case of the amphibians and the reptiles. How the process of circulation is carried out. In case of amphibians and reptiles, the heart is three-chambered. Heart is three-chambered. What is it consisting of? It is consisting of two auricles and one ventricle. If you take the example of the frog, if you take the example of the snake, here it is consisting of three chamber heart in which two auricles and one ventricle is present. Now, how the overall process is carried out in case of amphibians and reptiles. It is the left auricle, the ventricle, and right auricle. In case of the amphibians and reptiles, the lungs are the respiratory organs. Here, from the lungs, the oxygenated blood enters into the left auricle. In case of amphibians as well as in case of the reptiles, the oxygenated blood from the lungs enters into the left auricle. From the left auricle, blood flows into the ventricle. From the ventricle, the oxygenated blood is taken up to the body cells. When the body cells they are receiving the oxygen, all the cellular activities are being carried out, the oxidation process is carried out, energy is released, carbon dioxide is removed as the waste, and this carbon dioxide enters into the blood. Now, this blood is rich in carbon dioxide and it is called to be as the deoxygenated blood. Is called to be as the deoxygenated blood which flows into the right auricle. From the right auricle moves up into the ventricle, and from the ventricle it is taken up to the lungs. The deoxygenated blood, where it is taken? It is taken up to the lungs for the exchange of gases. Got it? In case of amphibians and reptiles, heart is three-chambered, in which two are auricles and one is ventricle. Lungs are the respiratory organs. From the lungs, the oxygenated blood enters into the left auricle and flows into the ventricle. Oxygenated blood from the ventricles is taken up to the body cells. Cellular activities are carried out. Carbon dioxide as the waste is removed into the blood, and which is now reaching carbon dioxide. The blood is reaching carbon dioxide. It is called to be as deoxygenated. This deoxygenated blood flows into the right auricle, then moves into the ventricle, and from the ventricle, the deoxygenated blood is taken to the lungs for the exchange of gases. So, in the overall one complete circulation, what happens? Here, the heart is receiving the blood for two times. How many times? For two times. The heart is receiving the blood for two times. One time it is taking up the oxygenated blood, and the second time it is taking up the deoxygenated blood. So it is a double circulation. So it is a double circulation. The next circulation or circulatory system in birds and mammals. In birds and mammals. Now, in case of birds and mammals, as these are warm-blooded organisms, the heart is four-chambered. Heart is four-chambered. When it is four-chambered, it should be consisting of two auricles and two ventricles. Right? Heart in case of birds and mammals is four chambered, that is consisting of two auricles and two ventricles. Now, let us see how the process is carried out. Left auricle and left ventricle. The lungs and the body cells. Okay. Now, the oxygenated blood from the lungs enters into the left auricle. Oxygenated blood enters from the lungs into the left auricle. From the left auricle, moves into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, it is taken up to the body cells. The oxygenated blood is taken where? Is taken to the body cells. All the cellular activities are being carried out. Waste in the form of carbon dioxide is released into the blood. It is deoxygenated blood. It is deoxygenated blood, which enters into the right auricle. From the right auricle into the left right ventricle. From the right ventricle to the lungs for the exchange of gases. The deoxygenated blood enters into the lungs for the exchange of gases. See here, into the birds and mammals, heart is four chambered, consisting of two auricles and two ventricles. Now, here the lungs are the respiratory organs in both the organisms. Here, the oxygenated blood from the lungs flows into the left auricle. From the left auricle, it moves into the left ventricle. Oxygenated blood from the left ventricle is taken to the body cells. Cellular activities are being carried out. Waste in the form of carbon dioxide is released. Blood is rich in carbon dioxide. This deoxygenated blood is flowing, is getting collected into the right auricle. From the right auricle, moves into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, deoxygenated blood is taken back to the lungs for the exchange of gases. So, in this complete cycle of the circulation, heart is receiving the blood for two times. So, here it is a double circulation. It is a double circulation. Living in the fishes, the amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals, all they undergo the process of double circulation. Living the fishes, wherein the single circulation is taking place. Why single circulation? Because heart is two chambered. In one complete cycle of the circulation, heart is receiving the blood for only one time. After this, let us move on. That was we were discussing for the heart as different organisms were consisting of different chambers into them. Like in fishes, two-chambered heart, reptiles and uh, amphibians consisting of three-chambered heart, and birds and mammals consisting of four-chambered heart. Now, as a question arises, why birds and mammals they are consisting of four-chambered heart? Why is it necessary for them to have separate separation for the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood into these organisms? Let us see the reason for this. As the birds and mammals, they are consisting of four-chambered heart. Due to this four-chambered heart, they can meet the efficiency of oxygen. Higher need of the energy can be fulfilled. Higher energy need can be fulfilled. Second, these help to maintain the body temperature. Four-chambered heart helps to maintain the body temperature. Thirdly, mixing of the blood. Prevents mixing of the blood. Okay. So these are the reasons why the birds and mammals, they are consisting of four chambered heart into them. The next, let us see the second part. After the heart, we come across that is blood vessels. The tube-like structures through which the blood moves, through which the blood moves. So here, the blood vessels, they are the arteries, they are the veins, and the capillaries. Now, the arteries. What are these arteries? These arteries are the vessels which take up the blood away from the heart. Yes, the arteries, what they are doing, they are helpful in taking the blood away from the heart. Why? Because these arteries usually they are taking up the oxygenated blood to each and every cell. So these arteries further they are branched out to be as arterioles, and then they are taking the blood which is consisting of oxygen into them to the cells. That is why from the heart it is taking up the blood to the cells. So we can mention arteries take the blood away from the heart. Second thing, into the arteries, what happens? Blood flows with a high pressure. In arteries, blood flow with a high pressure. When the pressure is high, what will happen? There are the chances for the rupturing of the blood. To prevent that, here they should be thick and more elastic walls. The walls of the arteries, they should be thick and more elastic. Why? Because into the arteries blood is flowing with a high pressure. To prevent that rupturing of the blood, they should be consisting of thick and more elastic walls into them. The exception case we said, as I said here, arteries, into the arteries always they are carrying up the oxygenated blood, but the pulmonary artery is the exception case wherein it is taking up the deoxygenated blood into it. Okay, the next blood vessel we come across is the veins. These veins, they take up the blood towards the heart. They take the blood towards the heart. When they are taking the blood towards the heart, that means they are carrying the carbon dioxide into it. So they are taking up the deoxygenated blood into it. The next, the blood flows with a low pressure into the veins. Always the blood flows with a low pressure, less pressure into it. Thirdly, when pressure is low, what will happen? The walls should be thin. Sorry. Yes. Thin and less elastic. Okay. The veins, when the blood is flowing with less pressure into the veins, what will happen? The walls, they are thin and less elastic into them. And veins are consisting of the valves into it. Valves are present into the veins. Now, what do these valves do? These valves, they prevent the backflow of the blood. What do they do? They are preventing the backflow of blood. Okay, you might have observed if you connect the motor pump to the tap water. What happens? Water is flowing with a high pressure into the pipe, isn't it? Now, all of a sudden, power is off. What will happen? The water starts to flow back, isn't it? In the same manner, what will happen into the veins? If these valves are not present, there are the chances of blood to move back again. To prevent that, these valves are present into the veins. Okay, so this is about the veins. And exception case we come across, the veins always they carry the deoxygenated blood into them. The exception case we come across, it is the pulmonary vein which is taking up always the oxygenated blood into it. Next, coming towards the capillaries. What are these capillaries? Capillaries are the thin tube-like structures. Okay, these are the thin tube-like structures. If you see the structure of the okay, suppose this is the artery, this is the vein. These arteries cannot reach up to the cells, so they are branched out to be as arterioles. The veins they cannot reach up to the cells, so they are branched out to be as venules. And further, these arteries they are branched out into the small thin structures which are called to be as the capillaries. These are the blood capillaries. Okay. Now, what do these capillaries do? These capillaries, as they are very thin, consisting of the thin walls into them, they help in the process of exchange of materials between the cell that is brought up by the artery or by the vein. So what happens? These capillaries, these are the site wherein they help in the exchange of the materials. The next we come across, that is the circulatory medium. The circulatory medium. So the circulatory medium, it is consisting of what? It is consisting of the blood and the lymph. Circulatory medium into the human beings, that is consisting of the blood and the lymph. Blood. What is blood? You have already studied in your 9th standard about the blood, that it is a fluid connective tissue. Blood is a fluid connective tissue, isn't it? This blood is consisting of the components which are called to be as the plasma, the red blood cells, white blood cells, and the platelets. Right. The components of the blood, that is consisting of what? Consisting of the plasma, the red blood cells, white blood cells, and the platelets. Now, this plasma, what it is? It is the matrix of the blood. It is the fluid that is present into the blood. That is the ground substance present into the blood. This plasma, what does it do? It helps to carry the carbon dioxide, the waste, which is present in the dissolved form. Okay, it helps to carry the carbon dioxide and waste which is in the dissolved form. Right. The next, the red blood cells. The red blood cells, they are lacking the nucleus. They do not consist of the nucleus into them. That is why they are having a very short lifespan of the red blood cells. As they are not consisting of the nucleus, they are providing large space for the absorption of the oxygen. So the most important function performed by the red blood cells is that it carries the oxygen to each and every cell into the body. Got it? So these red blood cells, they are originating from where? They are originating from the bone marrow. Now, moving on to the white blood cells. White blood cells, they are consisting of the nucleus into them. Right? The white blood cells, they are consisting of the nucleus into them, and they are called to be as the soldiers of the body. Why they are called to be as the soldiers of the body? Because they help to fight against the infection. When they help to fight against the infection. When they are helpful in fighting against the infection, that means they should be consisting of the antibodies into them, and that antibodies is manufactured by these white blood cells. So we can mention that white blood cells, they are consisting of the nucleus into them. They are called to be as the soldiers of the body because they help to fight against the infection, and they can fight against the infection, that is because of the manufacturing of the antibodies into them with the help of the white blood cells. The last one, that is the platelets. What are these platelets? Platelets are the minute fragments of the blood cells, and these platelets, they are also not consisting of the nucleus into them, and these are most important. Why? Because they help to clot the blood. If you are just mentioning clot the blood, that is not sufficient. You should mention at the site of injury. At the site of injury. Right. So platelets, they are not consisting of the nucleus, and the most important function performed by the platelets is that they clot the blood at the site of injury by forming the fibrinogen protein, which helps to clot the blood. This is a protein which is formed at the site of injury that helps to clot the blood. So these are the most important functions performed by the components of the blood. What are the functions that are performed by the blood? The blood helps to transport the oxygen, helps to transport the urea, helps to transport fight against the infection, helps to transport the hormones, and also helps to clot the blood. We can club up all the functions of these components and write it to be as the functions performed by the blood. The lymph, the topic, subtopic for the circulatory medium, that is lymph, we shall continue into the next class. Thank you.